Hi, this is Sarah Bertocchi, and today I am going to walk you through a quick tutorial as to how to achieve the scarf mock-up that I had posted in our class Facebook page. I am using Adobe Photoshop version CS6, and I'm going to assume that the steps involved would be pretty much the same if you're using an earlier version of Photoshop or if you are in fact currently using the Creative Cloud. So to start, I like to have both my found image, which is featured over here on the left, as well as my pattern design open here on the right. And I personally like to work with these side by side so I could see what I'm doing. But whatever works for your process is fine. So really, to get started, what you want to do is you want to make sure that your found image is in fact your active file, and you want to start by making a selection of the scarf. Ideally, before you can apply your pattern to this, you want to convert any of the colors that currently exist on this scarf, and you want to change those to white. The easiest way to do that, I find, is to start by using your quick selection tool, which is featured over here on your toolbar over to the left. So if you click on that and you click and drag, then it pretty much captures all the areas of the scarf to which you want to apply your pattern design. So that does a pretty good job to start. However, you will notice up here at the top, I did select more than what I want to include. So if you're using a Mac and if you click on Alt Option, you'll see that'll convert to a minus sign. Just drag down or click again, and then that'll make that quick correction. So I think to start, that looks pretty good. I also like to take one more step, which is to use my quick mask, which is located down here at the bottom. Click on that. Excuse me. And that'll allow you to make a more accurate selection. If you go to your zoom tool and you zoom in, you can see there are a few areas where the quick selection tool might have missed. So this will give you the opportunity to make those corrections. And the way I like to do it is I'll go over to my eraser tool, and that becomes my active tool. And you could increase or decrease the size of the eraser by using the bracket symbols on your keyboard. And the way you would add or delete to your selection is to go down here between your black and white defaults. And black in this instance means to remove or to delete. And the white is how you would add back into your selection. So right here, you want this to be part of your background and not actually part of your scarf. So you want to add that back in. And what you could do here now is just kind of go quickly follow along the contours of the scarf just to see where the quick selection tool might have missed. And right here, you see it didn't really capture that edge right here. So you want to correct that. You can just kind of quickly go through the outlines of the scarf and make whatever corrections you think might be necessary. And again, if you overcorrect, then you could just go back and add that back in. Oh, and you'll see along here, along the neckline, we missed a little bit here, so we just want to kind of neaten that up a little bit. But overall, the quick selection tool does a pretty accurate job. One other thing just to consider is things such as the fringe. Again, not sure if that's necessary depending on how you're using your image and how you're going to be presenting it, but let's just do it for purposes of the demonstration. And so you would then go through manually and just make sure that you're adding the fringe back into your selection. And again, I'm using my mouse, so this is somewhat of a tedious process. If you're using a Wacom tablet or Wacom tablet, this might be a little bit faster. So I think that actually looks okay. Now you want to go up to View and Fit on Screen, and that'll zoom back out to your entire image. And then click back on your quick mask. And there you have it. That is actually your scarf selection to which your pattern will be applied. What I like to do next is to actually save this selection, because very often once I've made a mock-up, I may be using the same mock-up for multiple patterns. And if you save your selection, then the next time you go to this file, you don't have to go through that step because your selection is already saved. And the way to do that is you just go to Select, and it scroll down, it says Save Selection, and I'll just call this a scarf, and hit OK. And then you want to go to Select and then Deselect. The next step, now that you've actually saved your selection, is to convert the blue scarf in your mockup file to a scarf that is white. The way to achieve that is you want to go back up and add your selection to your scarf mockup. So the selection you had just made, you had saved, and you could find that under Select, Load Selection, and you will see under the Channels pull-down menu here, there is the selection that we named Scarf. So click on that, hit OK, and that will reload your selection. And this selection is what you want to convert to white. And the easiest way I find to do that is to add a layer style gradient map, which would allow you to add a gradient of black and white and gray until you achieve a color combination that's not too washed out. So on your layers panel in Photoshop, you want to make sure that your original found image is not the background layer anymore. So if you just double click that, it'll convert it to an editable layer. And to that, you can then add a layer style, which you'll find down here at the bottom, gradient map. It should default to a black and white gradient up here in this bar. So if you click on that, it'll open another window, which will give you your black and white color stops. What you want to do is you'll notice to the left your mock-up image has been changed. Your selection is changed to black and white, and that's still a little bit too dark. So in order to lighten it, you could add another stop here by hitting Alt and then click on the stop, and then you could pull that out. Pull that out. There you go. And then that will start to change the color to white. Again, this is really just something you need to play with until you've achieved the shadowing and the colors that you're comfortable with. So I think let's make this a little bit. All right, so I think that looks pretty good. Oh, geez, my computer's so slow. And you click OK. And get rid of this window. All right, so that's your gradient map. Now that you've added your gradient map, the next step is to bring a copy of your pattern design over to your mockup file. So you already have that file open, so just click on it to make it the active file. If you hit Command A, then Command C, that will select all and copy. Click back onto your mockup file to make it active. Go up to Edit and Paste, and that'll drop a copy of your pattern design into your mockup file. And then with your selection tool active, you can move and resize your pattern design as you see appropriate. So I like to just kind of move this to the center and have it just below the shoulder line. And then rather than enlarge my pattern, I will make a duplicate copy of my pattern design, duplicate layer, and then move the top pattern design layer and locate it just above to cover the top half. And you want to try to make sure these are aligned properly. You should get kind of the snap line, which will indicate that you're correctly aligned. Now, before merging these two layers, I like to take the top part of the top layer of my pattern design and rotate it 90 degrees. So you go to Edit, Transform, Rotate 90, and you can rotate either left or right. And the reason I like to do that, I think it more accurately reflects the fabric folds. And if you were in fact to kind of tie your scarf, you're not going to see the pattern kind of all in straight lines. So that's why I like to rotate it. I think it just looks more realistic. So then you want to merge these two pattern layers together. So to do that, if you hit Command and then click on your layer 1, we'll take both copies of your pattern design, and then you want to merge them. If you go up to the menu layer here, click Merge Layers, then that will make those two layers one complete image. This next thing you want to do is to bring a copy from your gradient map layer of your selection up to the pattern layer. So to do that, if you make your gradient map layer active, you want to make sure, see this white box around your selection, you want to make sure that's active as well. If you hit Alt or Option key on your Mac and then click on your selection and then drag up to the layer above, it'll make a copy of that selection. Then if you click on the pattern layer, you want to change the blending mode from normal to multiply. And that will allow all the shadowing that you had applied from your gradient map to show through. And the last thing what I'd like to do is to apply an adjustment layer to brighten up the scarf just a little bit, because the multiply blend mode rather tends to darken the image a little bit. So if you go down to this kind of half moon and find your brightness contrast adjustment layer, and you also want to make sure that the brightness and contrast is only applied to the scarf selection. So you want to make that or apply a clipping mask to it. So if you click over here to this tab, Create Clipping Mask, that will apply the brightness and contrast only to the scarf and not to the rest of the background on the image. And up here in your brightness contrast window, you could adjust and brighten the scarf just a little bit. So again, so it looks a little bit more realistic. So I think that looks okay. Close this window, and I think there you have it.